following podcast contains spoilers and words like fuck and Mate, did we watch a thing this week?
Yeah, we did. Hello and welcome to the podcast. Thanks for joining us here at We Watched a Thing. We're Billy. We're getting classy, my friend.
That's right, we're getting all artsy on your
Getting
asses.
dolled up. We're going to the theatre.
The theatre, I think you mean.
Theatre.
How have you been, bud?
Yeah, okay, thanks. I'm trying to think of anything that happened of note since last week, and I got nothing.
No, nothing really happened of note, except that, as you mentioned, we did both catch Hamilton.
Yes. Me for a second time, because...
Yeah, show off.
Well, I've seen it.
Well, it really pisses me off. So you saw it on West End. Did you have... I mean, okay, the show is a phenomenon, so I know that you knew what it was, but you know that I love... part of the problem with watching this the other night, my wife nearly made me turn it off 15 minutes in because I wouldn't stop rapping. I love Hamilton.
I can well imagine that I'd have been on side with your wife.
Did you know anything about it when you walked in? Like, were you keen? I'm so annoyed that you saw it when I'm the one who loves it. Did you know anything about it when you went in there?
My basis for knowing things about Hamilton was through the prism of West Wing, which LMM is a massive fan of. And there are, I mean, really for me, Hamilton works primarily as a 2.5 hour West Wing drinking game, where every time there's a West Wing reference, you take a shot.
So obviously seeing it on West End, though, it was not the original cast, which this is. So should we get into it?
Yeah, let's do that.
All right. So Hamilton is a 2020 American musical drama film that is a live stage production recording of the Broadway musical of the same name, which is inspired by the 2004 biography Alexander Hamilton by Ron Chernow. It's directed and produced by Thomas Kail and produced, written and composed by Lin-Manuel Miranda, who also stars in the title role. And what is it about, Toph?
Well, like you said, it's about Alexander Hamilton. He's the guy from the American $10 bill.
Yep. Dropping Hamiltons.
Also notable, I suppose, for being an original work on Disney Plus, of which there are what, 3?
Do you mean as in non-franchise, non-remakes, Yeah, probably about that. Yeah, if you count this as an original work, this is, and I'll get into part of my beef with it, but it feels weird to talk about this as a film. I don't know about you, but I did not rate this on Letterboxd because I just couldn't bring myself to do it. And I'm going to have a really hard time actually even giving this a score because this is not a film.
So I did rate it on Letterboxd. I wasn't that pedantic about it. But if I was to get to the end of the year and this was in my 5 favorite things that I saw this year, I still wouldn't put it in my top 5 because, yeah, this is not a movie. This is a recording of a stage production.
Exactly. And here's the thing, like I watch a lot of concerts. I don't consider them in the same thing. Even stand-up comedy, I tend not to, like I wouldn't put that in my lists or anything because, yeah, and this to me is in the same realm.
Yeah, this is actually, it's the closest thing that I would put it to is a concert.
Exactly.
Show.
It's a concert, yeah.
I love a concert.
Me too.
Show.
I watch them all the time. So, all right, let's get into it. And since we are a film podcast, I guess let's talk about the production aspects first. So firstly, I just want to say something which I'm sure that you'll agree with. Film lighting for the stage is extremely different to lighting for film. And it is so hard to get it to look good, like on both realms. Like filming a live performance is extraordinarily hard. I think they did a pretty beautiful job here because the lighting, you can really see how wonderful the lighting for this show is.
It's brilliant.
Yeah,
actually.
The lighting is brilliant. And the fact that they were able to capture that on camera, which is really, really difficult, it's pretty incredible.
I'm a fan in just film lighting of people just going forward and not having a lot of fill light and just letting the dark areas of the frame be just dark of night, really. Yeah. Which, of course, with high key lighting that you get on stage, anything that's not lit is black.
Yes.
And it's a look that, and this is just personal preference stuff, It's just a look that I dig.
Same. And as I said, I think it's actually really hard to capture that. So I found that pretty impressive, especially I assume you know this about the production, but this was not actually filmed for this purpose at all. They filmed these performances. And yeah, so it's not just one performance. They filmed these really just as overlay for a documentary. And then when it got out that they had enough footage to do this, it started a massive bidding war, which did...
people give us Hamilton.
Yeah. And this was apparently like one of the most expensive Disney acquisitions ever. Like it's huge.
75 million, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. Yeah. That's insane.
That's a lot of money.
And I don't know, I'm assuming that you have a Disney Plus account. You cannot watch this on a trial account. You can't sign up for the sign up for the 7-day free trial and watch the recorded of Hamilton. You have to have an actual account.
You packet tight ass mouse house.
Well, I
pricks.
mean, honestly, if you're going to spend 75 million on something, like you want to make your money back, because this was meant to be theatrically released. And I'm just going to put this out there. Great that they dropped it on Disney Plus. At the moment when live theater is essentially on pause and you can't see this kind of thing, honestly, I'm putting this down as a charity case, because they are not going to make the money back on streaming for this that they would have in a cinema. And I think a cinema would have been the way to see this. So
I think this would be an exceptional cinema experience.
Absolutely,
actually.
it would. It will, because that's what this is. This is an event film. It's not really a film. It's an event. And so, yeah, honestly, dropping it on Disney Plus at all is honestly charity as far as I'm concerned.
And I mean, they moved it up by more than a year, really.
It was meant to release next year.
Just as okay, world, you need this right now.
Yeah, so honestly, kudos for that. That's pretty mad props to them for doing that. That being said, let's get into it proper. I loved the filming. I did not love the experience of this. Like, I don't know if you've ever watched a bootleg of anything, but there's always that thing of like, don't do it because it'll ruin it for you.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of felt that a little here. Like, because as good of a production as this is not the way to see Hamilton. And I'm going to be honest, I am much more likely to just throw on the album back to back and listen to it start to finish again than I am to watch this again. I don't think I would watch this again.
So there's things when you see it in the production that certainly make more sense when you can actually see what's going on. My older sister, who we watched it with yesterday, we came around and had a mini Hamilton party for just a little reunion for people that, not like you peasants who haven't seen it, little reunion for those of us that were there. And she made this point beforehand, and I think it was bang on, that especially what's the name of the song that Angelica sings, where she introduces him to Eliza. And
Well,
kind of
Helpless is the one where he's introduced, and then later at their wedding is when Angelica sings Satisfied, and that's the one that does the rewind thing back to that night. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think that works. I mean, that works an awful lot better when you've actually got the visual to tie in.
It's actually interesting, because as I said, I've listened to this back to back. I know just about all the words, and I'd never had a problem. In fact, in my head, I was like, I wonder how they do that on stage. And while it does work really well, I think the staging of the show is amazing. They do a lot of great things using those center turntables.
Oh, the use of, it's such a simple device that just adds so much
absolutely.
to the show.
And honestly, the thing about Hamilton is the choreography is really not a big thing. This is not Cats, for example, that is a song and dance show.
Unfair to compare anything to
but
Cats.
This is very lyrically driven. And even when there is dancing, those turntables do a huge amount of the work, which is really, really cool. They're really well utilized. But a big problem I have with the production, not the stage production, the film production, is that they filmed 3 full performances and then they did, like, I don't know how many shots there are, but any shot where you see a Steadicam or a crane, which happens at least once or twice a song, there was no audience present for that, and they're just these set-up shots to get these kind of sweeping big things. And those shots are really cool. I think part of the problem is that because they had so much footage to choose from, they couldn't... I don't think it's edited especially well. What's your take on the editing? Because I think especially... like, it really is a slow moving musical, and I would have liked to have seen wider, more static shots, punching in for those emotional moments. But there are times here where you are missing that awesome staging because the camera just continues to cut really fast, like a Michael Bay movie. Did you feel that?
Not usually. Occasionally I did, but not on the whole. I think, and I disagree with you when you say it's a slow-moving musical. I read something like 2 days ago that said if Hamilton had moved at the pace in terms of words per minute of a quote-unquote normal musical, it would take 5 hours.
Well, yeah, because it's rap. Like, it takes a lot of time to breathe, I think.
Okay, we'll just go ahead and disagree there. That's fine. So I think when it is giving you the experience of watching this show from a seat in the theatre, I'm really into it. One of the reasons that I think that's a good way to watch the show, for me personally, a good thing about that to kind of complement watching the show live is that when I'm watching something live on stage, it doesn't matter what the production is, I get insanely distracted, and not even in a negative way. I just like looking at the nuts and bolts of the production.
Yeah, same, yeah.
And, that person's moving that thing there, and that's happening there, and they're moving there to set up to that. I just do a lot of that while I'm watching something. So here, because as we said, cameras can't see into the dark as well as the human eye, so things that are dark on screen in this show are really dark. Some stuff you just can't see. Or the camera has focused your vision on what's actually happening. Like, you really are just watching the action. If it's on a tight or a mid shot, you're not focused on that person moving a chair or a table. So that's good for someone like me who just has a wandering eye. Even though that was legitimately, that's a fun thing about watching the show, is that the choreography of, not even just the choreography of the performers, the choreography of the sets moving in and out which happens so fast. It's just amazing to watch. But here, that's not a distraction. So
True. That is one of the things I love about the set, is that that set is so incredibly well done. There's not a single full blackout or curtain drop in this show where they're rearranging things. Like, the set is so geniusly designed that it can look like a bunker, it can look like the exterior of a building, it can look like the docks. Like, it is really smart design, that set.
So yeah, when it's just giving you the feel of what is it like to watch Hamilton in the theatre, I think this production does that really well. Once you get onto a Steadicam that's actually on stage and clearly is within 2 meters of a performer, I think it's jarring. The switch from a mid-shot taken from, let's say, 20 meters away to a mid-shot taken 1.5 meters away, while, yeah, sure, it's really dynamic because of just the way a camera moves when it's that close to someone. It's so far removed from the experience of watching this play that I'm like, nah. When the wide shot, and I mean, you know the shot I'm talking about, when it's just a wide shot of the entire stage taken effectively from the front row.
Yeah.
So it's still, it's a wide shot, and you do get the extra kind of energy into the shot because people are kind of so close to it. That shot works for me. And that's the kind of, if you're in the front row shot, and that shot is kick-ass, anything where it actually goes onto stage, I'm like, I don't know, I feel like we're cheating or something.
Yeah, no, I agree. And that's what I was talking about with the editing and wishing it would be slower. I would have no problem if this film would just hold on that wider shot for minutes at a time. I don't need this film to cut as much as it does into those close-ups and cut from close-up to close-up, not even mid to close. There are segments of this where it's doing close on a bunch of different things, and I don't need that. I would rather have the wide and be able to take in all of that at once.
Yeah, and so this is the difference between capturing, like we said, a concert film or something, and actually adapting it for film. When we talked a little while back, it was an episode we did for the patrons on the film 8 Women, which was a film adaptation of a musical, and there were parts of that film where I was like, you've just sat a camera there and just let things play out in front of it, in my opinion, a shockingly boring
I
way.
actually liked that.
And I was like, whereas this, you are just capturing the actual thing. So by all means, just show us the thing.
Yeah. So that really is my beef with the production. I guess it's crazy. I don't know how long we've been talking for, but we have not even actually spoken about the play itself yet. So let's get into that. Being a huge fan of this show, it was what I liked best about this film performance was getting to see those amazing performances. And there are some fucking amazing performances here. Leslie Odom Jr. as Aaron Burr might be one of my favorite stage performances of all time. He is just fantastic. And the chemistry between him and Lin-Manuel is really, really what makes so much of this work, I think.
It's weird to talk about humility when you create and write a production starring you.
Yeah.
but Lin-Manuel Miranda has the good sense to be like, the other people in this production are going to be better performers than I am. So I'm not going to take things like Burr's song Room Where It Happened, because quite frankly, it's beyond me.
Well, and that's the thing about Lin-Manuel. I think he is one of the best writers of our generation, and I think he's incredible in a lot of ways. I actually don't think he's a great singer, really. And I think that he recognizes that, given that most of what he does in this show is raps. And I think he really was smart casting himself as Hamilton, because Hamilton is supposed to be a little bit kind of socially awkward, and I think that comes across in Lin-Manuel's voice, if that makes sense. Like, he's a little bit kind of shaky, a little bit, and I think that really, really works.
Even, in fact, whenever the Steadicam is like quite close to him, that's another time where I'm like, oh, you know what? As much as like this guy is a genius,
he's not a great performer.
Like, we actually don't need to be that close to him.
No, because he does what you know. I hate amateur theatre, and you know I've had to see a lot of amateur theatre. And one of my big problems with amateur theatre is the over-the-topness of it. There is a lot of, if a line is meant to have a bit of an emotional hit, they'll weep. And I find that Lin-Manuel does a little bit of that, whereas someone like Leslie Odom Jr. is a bit more, he's more nuanced, which is harder for stage performers. There's a reason they go over the top, because you're looking at them from meters and meters away, so they need to be extremely expressive. But it is something that I've personally have always found, it just rubs me the wrong way. I just don't love it.
I mean, yeah, because the kind of hilarious thing is, of course, you've got to go big because there's no close-up.
No, that's right.
Of course, here, there's a close-up.
You can see it really, like Jonathan Groff as King George, who is fantastic. He is brilliant, and part of it is the character he plays, but he is able to be so understated and overstated all at once, and that what makes him work as that regal character is that he can be completely almost unexpressive with spit flying in all directions at the same time.
It's a really good call. He can dial it up to 10 with like one eyebrow.
Yes. Yeah. He is genius in this. Absolutely.
So many of the performances are so fantastic that when we are on a close-up, it's great, because you're just watching people of a level of talent that, I mean, if you get this far on Broadway, the West End, like if you're a major musical talent on stage, you are at a level that very, very few film actors are at, quite frankly. So, yeah, there is just... It's a lot of fun to just sit there and be blown away by the talent in front of you.
That's the thing, the talent that drips off of the stage. Renee Elise Goldsberry, who plays Angelica, like the talent that she has to be able to sing, rap, act with such emotion, dance, everything she's doing is insane. She is so overwhelmingly good.
Yeah, she's like, it's a bit silly really when you're aware you're watching a collection of supreme talent and then someone stands out. You're like,
well, yes.
Well, how stupidly good are you?
Yeah. Yeah. Apart from actually seeing this, have you listened to the soundtrack? Like, could you name songs? Like, if I said, what's your favorite 5 songs, would you be able to do that, or do you not have enough?
No, I couldn't do that. I could have even, like, before watching it again yesterday, I could have thrown a couple at you, like Room Where It Happens. Yeah. other things that might
that trigger West Wing for you.
In the West Wing.
See, my biggest problem is that that I can't listen to a rap song without rapping it.
Because you're from the street, Billy.
Yeah, but with my stupid voice, it's like I'm faced with a real dilemma because do I put on an accent and sound like a knob, or do I not and sound like a wannabe Aussie hip-hopper?
Which is, as we know, the lowest form of life on the planet.
Exactly. But it's really, really, really tricky for me. Because how does a bastard, orphan, son of a whore and a Scotsman, dropped in the middle of a forgotten spot in the Caribbean by providence, impoverished and squalor, grow up to be a hero and a scholar, mate, the $10? I feel like it just doesn't work.
This is good because it really draws attention to how good these people are.
That's right. Because, I mean, I'm pretty damn good. And if I can't pull it off...
Let me ask you a question. I'm going to ask you as the visual effects voice in the podcast, but watching it, I was also like, okay, I know how to fix this. But let me ask you, the conductor's head at the bottom of screen... Mm-hmm. Would you have gotten rid of it?
Would I have painted it out? I mean, because you could, obviously.
Because it just, anytime he moves his head around, it draws my eye, and I'm like, I don't need to.
I mean, it would depend on the shot because
get rid of it. Just get rid of it.
As we've said, they actually don't use that wide shot a lot. So I'm trying to think of like how much it would be worth it to paint him out. I probably wouldn't, to be honest.
How much it would be worth it? I can do it. I could fan edit his head out.
Well, you do that then, mate. You do that and face the wrath of Disney.
I might. The Topher cut of Hamilton.
You do good fan edits. There's no denying that.
That's a very polite way of saying I have no like.
All right. How are you scoring Hamilton, my friend?
Look, it's for all you peasants out there, it's not as good as seeing it live. Yeah. Let me break that to you. But as an experience of getting as close to it as you can get in your living room, I think it's absolutely clears the bar. I was really into it. 8 out of 10.
I found this really hard to score because for me, the musical is a straight up 10. It's an absolute 10. If I'm scoring the album, like the original cast album, 10 out of 10. I found that seeing this for me just didn't really work. And I feel like if I'd seen it in a cinema, maybe my score would have gone up by a point at least. I'm a 7 because I just don't know that this is really the way to, like, obviously, okay, it's better than nothing. We can't get to Broadway, and even if we could, this original cast is gone. Like, I think none of the original cast are still in these roles. So
no, they had to get Groff back for this even, and that was 4 years ago.
So look, I mean, as far as absolutely incredible. It's the fact that we can see this is great, but I just wish that maybe they'd been a little bit slower on the editing. And really, my other thing is maybe I wish they'd treated the sound a little nicer, because that for me is where you can tell that they filmed this really only with the intention of using it as overlay in a doco, because I don't think they recorded the sound with the same treatment they would have had they known this was going to be a full film performance, because I think the sound is a bit tinny and echoey for me.
So what you're saying is stop being cheap, go to the Northern Hemisphere people and do it properly.
Look, no.
That's what Billy said.
I'm saying that as far as second best goes, this is great, but I can't give it any more than a 7 because there are a few production things film-wise that I think let down how amazing the stage production is. That's my take. All right. I guess we don't know what we're getting to next week, do we?
No, it's a fluid world we live in.
Well, I guess we'll leave that as a little surprise for you all. All right. In the meantime, if you want to get in touch with us, you can do that at wewatchedathing.com or wewatchedathing@gmail.com. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, all under the handle @wewatchedathing. If you want to help support the show, you can do that at patreon.com/wewatchedathing, and we'll catch you next week.
See ya. Yeah, it's very good.